a lot of information, you know, just the typical sensory and cognitive and all that stuff.
So we also had to fill out the paperwork 2 weeks, I believe, before the evaluation. But if you're like me, then you're like hand delivering it the day before. And then to prepare, we did bring snacks, which was good because then the therapists were able to see how my son requested snacks. I also happened to have my phone on me because when do I not? But it also had videos of my son talking, so when the speech therapist had a specific question, I was saying how he counts. And she asked me, you know, like, what, is he just saying vowels or consonants? And I was like, actually. And so she was really willing to look at whatever proof I had because my son isn't somebody who will do things on command. And then a way to, you asked about mental preparation, something that really helped me was like, no matter what happens that day, if you know, if they're like, oh yeah, your son has autism, he had autism the day he was born, that he has it now and he'll always have it, you know, or if it was something different, then he's always had it. And I just feel like it would be a disservice for me not to recognize that at that point. So like mentally that helped me know that I'm kind of like being his voice, and that helped my husband too.
That's a good way
Figure it
to
out.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, can I just add, just to understand the structure of the clinic, I guess, you know, it works differently at different sites.
Absolutely.
Do you want to talk about
Yeah.
how it does?
And I've been involved, sure, and you could speak about our clinic, but I've been, in my training, I was involved in different medical diagnostic clinics all across the city. So I've been to, or a part of, what, about 5 different systems. And there are different styles. There are some where everybody is all in the room at the same time, evaluating, asking questions, and what we call an arena style evaluation. There are some clinics where it might be just part of the team at a time, and then they leave the room and the next one will come in. And there are other styles where you may see the doctor first, and then other therapists, and then, you know, there's like a multi-day model. So there's no real set standard that early intervention has set for these clinics. They do have a particular standard of how they want the report to be done and the formatting of all the reports, which is a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
And therapists know.
Like 30-page report, you know.
Absolutely. And so the format, and they also want to make sure that you're using approved early intervention developmental assessment tools. And those are published on the EI clearinghouse, I believe. So I've got that list with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so knowing the kind of style of the clinic can be helpful, because then you know what to expect. Are we going to get all this done in one day? Is it going to be multiple days? Who am I seeing, who am I meeting with first, and how to prepare for each one of those? Because the doctor may do more medical assessment, the psychologists may be doing more testing, or, you know, anything in between. So each clinic is a little bit different in that way.
Did they tell you what to expect when the intake person called?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at Lutheran, or am I not supposed to say that's where we were? Well, that's where,
You already.
that's where I was, yeah. This is just the way that was, sorry.
This is your experience.
Okay, this was just my experience, yes. So when I worked at the clinic there, we already talked about who was on the team, but generally the audiologist did a hearing test first. Does that still happen or not as much?
It isn't happening now because we're just not able to coordinate schedules.
So, but that would happen, and then we would all kind of walk into one big room together. And, you know, it's, the wait for this clinic is such a shame, because as if it wasn't intense enough, you've waited 9 months or whatever to come here. You want your child to be healthy. You want to make sure he's had a nice night's sleep, right? God forbid he is sick, right? I mean, we all are waiting, sorry,
I haven't
but
been
for, you're never allowed to be sick. So, I mean, everyone has to be on their game. And as a therapist there, I love seeing the videos on your phone, or I love reading the reports that you write. And if there were, you probably didn't get a call because you write good reports. But I mean, if there were questions about it, you know, or, you know, the speech therapist wrote that he was eating really safely and had no concerns, and yet when you brought your snack, and we were not only watching how you were requesting that snack, we're watching how he's chewing and swallowing, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're gonna call and just say what's going on. There are limitations of this clinic as well, and we are very aware that as the evaluator, we're seeing him for 2 hours, you know, and we've done our homework. We've read all the reports. We'll look at every piece of thing you want to show us, and we are watching your child and listening to what you're saying. But as you probably, you know, we are multitasking experts at this point. I mean, really, when the phone rings and, you know, something else is happening at home, I'm like, that's nothing. I'm watching the child and listening to the parent, I'm writing my note, and, you know, taking copious, you know, you're watching everybody, because we know we only have this short amount of time to really see what's going on. So I think just from my point of view, it's stressful for me in that way, because I want to make sure that I'm getting a good idea about this child and this family. But I know that you're in there every week, you know, and then me, you know, now that's what I'm doing, and I refer to these clinics, and I'll see the report and I'll go, oh man, he didn't do that? He totally does that for me. So, but in the grand scheme of things, you know, you hope that all of this information together is just helping you understand the child as a whole.
It's a rare occurrence where the child that we see in the clinic is different than the child in the reports. Sometimes it's very hard to capture the essence of a child and how they're interacting in their development in a report. But we really appreciate as many descriptors as you can give, or examples and things like that in your reports. And it's also important to know, yes, we said talk to your therapists about this, but also I think sometimes parents aren't aware that therapists aren't really, and you can chime in at any point, are really supposed to give opinions on diagnoses or diagnoses. And so sometimes families may feel like, oh, well, my therapist never told me that the child may have autism, or and this is blindsiding me. Or the reverse, or they said, oh, there's no way. And so we, I just want to mention that, because that is a dynamic that's I can recognize as a struggle as a therapist, that you may know, oh, something's going on, I want to say something, but in so many words, or maybe I can't come out and say it, but you know, I think we do often ask, you know, what do your therapists think? What have they told you about this? And parents will say, well, they're not really, they can't really say, or can't have said that they can't diagnose, but they have concerns with this, and this. And that kind of helps us to know, okay, we're on the same page here, or we're not.
But like you said, Jen, you had some sort of idea, and you too, Sammy, you were like, you know, I wonder if that's on the table, you know? And so a lot of times, even though as a therapist, it's hard to talk about something that everyone's kind of thinking about, but it's like, who's gonna say it, right? So, and you're right, we walk a fine line. We don't diagnose, so, you know, it's not always like a shock, though, when we do talk about it or make the referral. So then at Lutheran, it was an arena-style evaluation, and everybody is watching and scoring and doing their things, and we got pretty good at talking about feeding skills. I'd be asking about textures and how does he chew, and then the occupational therapist, and how does he hold the spoon, you know, and so we're like all like tag teaming this poor family with tons of questions, but a lot of it we've already read in reports, so we're just kind of corroborating. There's a medical exam as well, and
it's the friendliest medical exam ever that you'll see.
the ball.
Right,
And, yeah.
I'm on the floor,
Yeah.
we're playing with the stethoscope, I have baby dolls that we practice on in case kids are a little uncomfortable. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun, I understand, and I a lot of times save it to the end, because I understand it's very intrusive, and maybe kids have a strong reaction when they see the stethoscope being broken out. Oh, I thought you were my friend, you're really a doctor. So.
But there's a reason, oh, now you do wear scrubs there, don't, or not you,
The
but the
therapist.
therapists do. But we try to make it not so.
Medical. Right.
But then we all leave the room and we kind of score our reports and we talk in a room at length about what we've seen and what maybe the scores match with what we're thinking and what we've seen. And then we come back in the room and have a conversation with the
Feedback, right.
recommendations and all of that. And they do leave with a one-page report still?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's just something we've typed up that day so that, because we know that, you know, it's a lot, it's just a lot. You want to leave with something, and then that very long report comes later.
Yep. So early intervention, I believe the guidelines are 14 days after the evaluation. Now, that wasn't always the case for us, and probably when you
Don't
were
look
with
at
us.
me.
But we're much better now at that. Yeah, so 14 days.
How many medical diagnostic clinics do you guys do right now?
So at our hospital,
I mean, like on a weekly basis?
we do 4 a week, so it's not that many. At another hospital that I am affiliated with, they do 9 a week. And that's the largest provider of medical diagnostics in the state.
Is it the same amount of time, like half the day, half the day?
It varies a little bit. I will say that early intervention, you can bill for this diagnostic for only 80 minutes. Okay, so that is not very long at all. And so our clinic, we spent longer than that, but we know that it is a better service for the family to do that. There's no way we can kind of cram it all together like that. So, and there are other clinics that they try to do a little shorter, and it's difficult. But it's got to run really efficiently to be able to do that. Sometimes that feels quick, I understand, but there's some problems with the system. That's all. When you've got to account for your time.
But 80 minutes includes your report writing?
No, that's face-to-face.
Okay. Right, because we get longer than that for just an initial.
Yeah. Right.
We get 120.
Or an annual.
Yeah, for an annual. So. EI also says, like you were saying, you have another medical diagnostic this year. You can only have one per year.
Right.
So,
One per
huge
IFSP.
Right, so we got his medical diagnostic, the first time was like November 29th, and then this next one is December 5th.
ooh,
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
And third
Knowing
birthday.
the
I actually have a
system.
question about that, because
Yeah.
I'm wondering, so he already got the autism diagnosis. Does that, I don't know why in my mind I was thinking that we had to always get some sort of diagnosis like that. Is it, if they have the diagnosis, it's there, right? It's done, it's not like he needs to get reevaluated again to make sure that it still is. Right?
Without getting into too many specifics, the medical diagnostic clinic is supposed to be for making a medical diagnosis. So there are times where that is not possible, or there are questions. I mean, because we understand not every child is black or white, if they're on the spectrum or not, or there may be. And there are some kids who maybe they do get into a medical diagnostic evaluation and really haven't had a whole lot of therapies too. So and just as a sidebar to that, the weight, I understand it's a really tough thing, but actually sometimes it's good to have that time to be in therapies, if it is 6 months, because a lot of kids can change, a lot of things can improve, it's possible, and so the amount of worry that you may have in that initial evaluation could change over time, and that's the
and then
whole
what's
point of early
nice
intervention.
is that you can, because every 6 months we see a progress note, right? So we could even compare what the initial said to what 6 months later said.
Right, right.
So we're, you know, even we're reading that too. So.
Yeah, but then, I got off on a tangent there, but I know I was.
About a diagnosis.
Yes, so there may be the children that, for instance, we have a couple of different measurements we use for autism spectrum. They may be in the range of autism spectrum on one, but not the other. Or there may be, we really haven't gotten a hearing evaluation, could it be that? Or the child maybe, because of fragmented services, hasn't had some consistent therapeutic interventions, or this family is very isolated and the child maybe never has had opportunities to be around other children for social interactions. So lots of things could be confounding and could be variables that you may not feel comfortable as a provider to come to a conclusion for a diagnosis. And so in those cases, say, I have concerns for this, potentially it's not on the, it's not off the table at this point, and we will need to do a reevaluation. Now,